My name is Patrick Murphy. I've lived in Boulder 52 years. This presentation is about how to use the occupation tax in an equitable way. So what is the occupation tax and what is it currently used for? The occupation tax, just like the Climate Action Plan tax or CAP tax, is a carbon tax. Currently, Boulder collects 3 different carbon taxes that you can find on your energy bill. The first is the cap tax. That cap tax is about $1.8 million a year, started in about 2007, and currently, cumulatively, has amounted to about $25.2 million. The occupation tax goes into the general fund. It amounts to about $4 million per year, started in 2012, and cumulatively here in 2021 amounts to about $36 million. Third is sadly the Muni. The Boulder Energy Future cumulative tax amounted to about $2 million per year, started in 2011, and currently adds up to about $20 million. Note that in 2017, we added $4 million to the Muni cost. In 2019, we added $3 million to the Muni cost. So all of these carbon taxes combined here in 2021 amount to about $88.2 million. And remember, about half of that was not used for carbon reduction in any way. So here is an example of a typical Boulder energy bill. This comes from a friend of mine who has an apartment that is all electric. And you can see here she uses about close to 600 kilowatt hours. So what this bill composed of is a connect charge of $5.47. Here is the actual electric cost, and here's all the additional add-ons associated with that. Here's a credit, more add-ons, a credit, and then some renewable energy plan additional costs. So here's her subtotal bill, which is taxed by the Boulder occupation tax at 5.27%. And here's the amount. And here's the Climate Action Plan tax. And here's what that amounts to. If you add up all these taxes, they amount to about 10% of the entire power bill. So let's compare that with a solar power bill and a wind source power bill. This is my solar power bill. Note that there is still a connect fee, but note how all these values have zeroed out, and these are highly reduced because they're based on this value up here. And here's my subtotal. My Boulder occupation tax is tiny because this value is very small. And my Climate Action Plan tax is 0. Now here's a wind source bill from a friend of mine, but it's actually from 2019. And note he uses about 200 kilowatt hours a month. So here's his connect charge. Here's his electric charge, but notice he has a wind source charge of about $3 because it's about $1.50 per 100 kilowatt hour blocks. So you can see he pays about $3. He also has these additional charges. He does get this credit. Here's his subtotal. Now note that in 2019, the Boulder occupation tax was 7.33%, and I'll explain that later. His Climate Action Plan is 0 and would have been about $1. And because he's paying $3 but saves $1, his real cost for 100% renewables is about $2 a month. So how much money is this carbon tax and what is it used for? Just so you know, all of this information came right from Boulder's website. Currently, the utility occupation tax serves 2 functions. $4.7 million per year for the city's general fund, in other words, not used for carbon reduction, and $2 million per year for municipalization funding, which in reality hasn't produced an ounce of carbon reduction. And to help you see how those taxes change over time, you can see that currently it's about not here, but on those previous receipts, you can see that it's about 5%, but back in 2019, it was 7.3%. So once again, the occupation tax, just like the climate action plan tax, is a carbon tax. We've over time collected about $88.2 million collected as carbon tax, but less than half of that was used for carbon reduction. So this is what the new bill looks like. Here's the old bill, here's the new bill, and note that there's now a franchise fee and Boulder occupation tax. Note that this change started in October, and these values are negotiated by City Council and Excel, where we just say how much money we want, and Excel breaks that down into a percent of their anticipated total power bills. So this is something that will change over time. But the fact that the occupation tax is not used for carbon reduction, and probably this franchise fee is not used for carbon reduction, continues. So what's wrong? A carbon tax that is not used for carbon reduction. That's what's wrong. What could be done with $4+ million each year that is not used for carbon reduction? For about a decade, I've stated that it's solar incentives, wind source incentives, RECs, and energy use reduction. So for example, just on solar incentives, this would be a one-time payment to incentivize rooftop solar installation. This could range from about $2,000 to $4,000. With a lease program from a company like Sunrun, this would allow 120% renewables for a home with a monthly payment slightly less than the average monthly bill. Excel would get the RECs, but who cares? It's renewables on the grid with minimal transmission loss and minimal environmental impact. Note that almost all taxes are zero. Cap tax is zero, and occupation tax is almost reduced to zero. My typical bill for 100 kilowatt hours per month is $5.86 per month, and my lease is $36.80 a month, for a consistent cost of $42.66 per month, when my old bill from 2011 averaged $46 a month. I save a few bucks each month thanks to my sunny roof. Wind incentives. If I didn't have a sunny roof, I could get all my electricity, 100 kilowatt hours, from wind for about $1.50 a month with WindSource. I alone would get the RECs, not Excel. Note that the cap tax would be zero if you use WindSource. A friend of mine who uses about 200 kilowatt hours a month and pays $3 for 100% wind, and he gets the RECs credits, not Excel. He doesn't have to pay the cap tax, which would have been about $1. So the net cost to be 100% renewables per month was $2 or $24 for the whole year. Equitable. How to be equitable based on usage, with the assumption that larger usage is from higher income homes and lower usage is from lower income. Solar. Provide a sliding scale of incentives, with larger incentives for small installations and smaller incentives for larger. This is a one-time payment with decades of value. For example, a $2,000 incentive, which I received from Excel in 2011, divided by 20 years times 12 months per year equals $8.33 a month. Since solar costs have dropped a lot since 2011, a smaller incentive might achieve the same result. If anyone wants to put solar on their roof, Excel has to accept it. Wind. Wind, provide a sliding scale of incentives, with once again larger incentives for smaller usage and smaller incentives for larger. For example, low users like myself could just be totally covered, and the city could get the RECs. Larger users could get a 50% incentive, and middle users could get a 75% incentive. So what would this look like on average? Equity in renewables. So what if 2.2 million of cap tax were repurposed for real carbon reduction. And I'd like to see the additional $4 million that might be available from the occupation tax that is currently used by the general fund to apply to this. What if 200,000 was for administration, 1 million for solar incentives, and 1 million for wind source incentives? Solar one-time payments. With a $2,000 solar incentive, 500 additional homes could have solar each year. Wind annual payments. With an average of a 75% incentive with the average household usage of 480 kilowatt hours, the incentive would be 4.8 times 1.5 times 0.75 equals $5.40 a month, or $64.80 a year. $1 million divided by this incentive would mean that 15,432 homes would have 100% wind for a year. There are only about 42,000 residential users in Boulder, so 2.72 million could cover every household in Boulder. The user cost would be $1.80 a month, or $21.60 per year. Business, in general, uses about 4 times as much energy as residential. So a 50% incentive for each business would be about $14.40 a month, or $172.80 per year. There are about 7,355 businesses, so for 1 year, it would cost about $1.3 million to cover them all with wind source. Their cost would be about $172.80 per year, since it's a 50% incentive. And remember that these wind numbers could currently be reduced by 30%, since Xcel is already 30% renewables. And as Xcel increases renewables, these values would drop. By 2050 or sooner, they would all be zero. So here's a big spreadsheet using just wind source to figure out where we could be over time, based on the fact that Xcel is continually adding on renewables. So in this table, I have an estimate based on spending $2 million a year, $3 million a year, $4 million a year, or $5 million a year. Now here's some of the details. For $1 million at $1.50 per 100 kilowatt hour block, we could cover about 66,666 megawatts each year. Boulder currently uses about 1.4 million megawatts. What that means is today it would cost us $21 million a year to cover 100% of Boulder's usage. So we're not going to do that, but let's look at different options here. Xcel today is at 20% renewables or more. If we were to cover all of the remaining, it would cost us about $15.1 million. Xcel's at 28% today. If we were to spend $2 million, we'd be at 38%. If we were to spend $3 million, we'd be at 42%, and so on. If we were to spend $5 million today, we would be at 52% renewables. So let's look ahead. Xcel will be at about 49% renewables by 2024. To cover the entire remaining amount of Boulder's electric usage would cost us $10.7 million. So if Xcel's at 49%, we could be at 59%, spending $2 million per year, etc., up to 73%. And let's jump all the way down here to find out what happens at 2030. By 2030, Xcel is committed to be 80% renewables. And if we spent $2 million, we'd be at 90% renewables. If we spent $4 million, we'd be right on 100 million. So these are some options that Boulder has not been considering, and it's shameful, and it needs to change. So here's more information in general, and another interesting alternative. So I'm not going to discuss this whole thing, but this is in 2018 Excel's breakdown by energy source. Here's a breakdown of Boulder's energy use and natural gas use. And to cover all of our electric use by wind source, it'd be about $13.3 million. Now there's something called Renewables Connect, and using that, it would only cost $3.6 million. Now the thing about Renewables Connect, it's a subscription offer from Excel. You have to subscribe to it. It's not always available, but we should be on the wait list for the next time more Renewables Connect are available. And how do I come to these numbers? Here's a breakdown of where Boulder stands currently, really, and what it would cost for 100% renewables. So here's the numbers I came up with. But how do I come up with these numbers? By taking our usage and subtracting, which Boulder often doesn't do, the amount of wind source that Boulder without a Muni has already subscribed to, subtracting the solar, which Boulder has installed without a Muni, the solar gardens that currently exist, and Boulder's claims for energy conservation. So subtracting all that from Boulder's current electric usage, that's where I come up with these numbers. So wind source and its rate, and Renewables Connect at its rate. So we need to think about a mix of things, and Renewables Connect can be part of that when it's available. So what are RECs? Because RECs get a lot of bad press, and this comes straight out of the EPA website. RECs, a Renewable Energy Certificate, is a tradable market-based instrument that represents the legal property right to the renewableness of electricity. And the REC owner has exclusive rights to make claims about using or being powered with the renewable electricity associated with that. So RECs are the currency of renewables. RECs stimulate the renewables industry with a specific small incentive for every megawatt of renewables. Arguments against using RECs are ludicrous. Claims that RECs do not create new renewables are illogical. For example, if we were to build a wind farm after the first REC, all the following RECs do not create new renewables. RECs stimulate and incentivize new renewable projects. There are a limited amount of RECs, and the demand for them is growing. We should use RECs as a bridge to full renewables over time. The solution will be a mix of solar incentives, wind incentives, RECs, and energy use reduction. Note, things like building electrification with heat pumps and electric vehicles will increase electric usage and should be delayed in this transition to renewables, not pursued now. Otherwise, we are just burning large amounts of coal and gas to produce that additional electricity. And we need to consider public engagement. And energy use reduction can engage the public easily. Boulder should be setting aside a certain amount of money to give away free LEDs. LEDs reduce use by 70%. And you can encourage a lot of people to participate a lot more when you give them something when you take things away from them. So we need to use a mix of all of these, and we need to use it fast because Boulder has wasted 10 years and $30 million. We've already had 2 meetings of the Excel advisory panel, and nothing so far has happened. So something needs to happen, and it needs to happen quickly. And I thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it. If you wish to connect with me, please contact me at phmurphy@aol.com. Thanks so much.